things the same way and not achieving the right results definitely means it's time to do things differently. Go in a new direction, network, and re-energize your progressive ethos. Hi there, I'm Adrian Atkinson, and you're locked into Jamaica Magazine. Coming up on the show, screening out the risk of developing colon cancer. Also in the half hour, managing in drought situations. Plus, enlighten yourself about health and safety at the workplace. For those and lighter moments to come, sit back and relax.
A message from the Bureau of Gender Affairs and the Dispute Resolution Foundation, paid for by the UN Women Fund for Gender Equality.
It can be as common in women as it is in men. I'm talking about cancer of the colon or rectum. Deadly, but through screening it can be prevented. It's Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month, and we have more on this disease and how you can triumph against it.
Colorectal cancer, commonly known as bowel cancer, starts either in the large intestines or the rectum. It's a cancer that affects both men and women across the world, and in Jamaica, experts are concerned that it's getting more prevalent.
It's the third most common in both men and women, but important in our population, it's on the increase.
So what's causing the increase in colorectal cancer cases locally? Well, some of it has to do with lifestyle choices, bad ones.
One of the things that has been indicated is our diet. A diet that is relatively high in fat and processed food. But not only diet, but perhaps the relative lack of exercise.
Fatty foods promote colorectal cancer by increasing the release of bile acids. Bile acids are degraded by bacteria in the colon, and the secondary bile acids have been shown to stimulate the growth of colorectal cancer. Research has also indicates that exercising can decrease colon cancer risk by up to 40%. Exercise can also reduce the incidence of other risk factors for colon cancer like obesity and diabetes. Specialists recommend at least 15 minutes of exercise every day and a plant-based diet. By simply increasing daily portions of fruits, vegetables, and whole grains, persons can reduce their risk of colorectal cancer.
Try this. Divide your plate into quarters. 3 of those quarters should be covered with fruits, vegetables, and whole grains. The remaining quarter should be covered with your lean protein, chicken, fish, or beans.
According to Dr. Joseph Plummer, besides diet and exercise, there are other factors that increase the risk of colon cancer. At the top of the list,
the single most important risk for the general population is actually age. It's 80% of the time the cancers are going to occur in people over age 50. But other important risk factors would be a patient with a positive family history of colon cancer.
Dr. Plummer explains that if you have 2 first-degree relatives, mother, father, sister, or brother, who've been diagnosed with colon cancer, you are at a higher risk. Regular checkups are therefore crucial.
For the average person, we generally recommend having a colonoscopy at age 50. And if that is normal, really, it does not need to be done for another 7 to 10 years. It's a relatively slow-growing cancer.
However, Dr. Plummer recommends that if you have a family history of the disease, you should do a screening test about 10 years before the age at which that family member was diagnosed.
In other words, if your relative was diagnosed at age 55, then perhaps you should not wait until age 50 to have your colonoscopy. You should have it done at age 45.
With the proper screening, colon cancer can be detected in the early stages of the disease before symptoms develop. At the earliest stage, the disease affects only the innermost layers of the intestines. Stage 1 cancer is in the inner layers of the colon. When the cancer has spread to the muscle wall of the colon, it's described as stage 2, and stage 3 is when it begins to affect the lymph nodes. Stage 4 is determined once the cancer begins to spread to other organs.
In our population, maybe 40 to 50% of the patients, when they present, have incurable disease. They have waited too long. In fact, they ignore the common symptoms.
Symptoms like abdominal pain and tenderness in the lower abdomen, blood in the stool, diarrhea, constipation, or other changes in bowel habits, narrow stools, and weight loss for no known reason. Colonoscopy and sigmoidoscopy are the imaging tests to screen for and diagnose colorectal cancer.
Special CT scan is an important third option, which is available in Jamaica. And then finally, there's a barium enema.
According to colorectal surgeons, treatment and cure of colorectal cancer depend on the stage of the disease. In general, treatments may include surgery to remove cancer cells, chemotherapy to kill cancer cells, and radiation therapy to destroy cancerous tissue.
Colorectal cancer is a curable cancer. It's one that you are sure that detected at the right stage, you can be cured.
Dr. Plummer insists that the most effective way to prevent complications is to find out early if there is a problem and remove precancerous polyps before they turn cancerous. You may also lower your risk of developing colorectal cancer by managing the risk factors that you can control, like diet and physical activity. Choose foods and beverages in amounts that help achieve and maintain a healthy weight. Eat 5 or more servings of a variety of vegetables and fruits each day. Choose whole grains rather than processed grains. Limit your intake of red meat, avoid excessive amounts of alcohol, and get at least 30 minutes of moderate to vigorous physical activity 5 times per week.
So get out there and get busy. Be health-wise.
Know your numbers and control the keys to a healthier heart. Know the numbers for your blood pressure, cholesterol level, blood glucose level, and your weight and body mass index. Find out the risks they represent and what you need to do to stay healthy. Talk to your doctor and start making healthy lifestyle choices to prevent a heart attack or stroke.
We get thirsty, the earth gets dry, plants wilt and may even die. But by harvesting and storing clean water when there's abundant supply, we can have enough for use when there is a drought. Here's an example of people in rural Jamaica utilizing catchments to keep the crops thriving.
We get most of our annual rainfall during the May to June and October to November months. Periods when water is in abundance. But at other times, agriculture faces seasonal but extensive droughts.
It's terrible when you have drought, man. It's terrible.
Farmers like Mr. Campbell, who know the horror of drought, reach for solutions. And a good one is to store excess water from the rainy months for the dry season. Harvesting water requires some investment. These include putting in catchment tanks or ponds.
Right here we have a typical pond that is used to harness rainwater. It is dug using a backhoe or other machinery, and it is then lined with this plastic material that is called a pond liner, which then keeps the water in place and it holds it there until you're ready to use it for your irrigation purposes or whatever other purpose you may need.
In this model, rainwater collected from the roof of this greenhouse using a gutter is emptied into the pond, then pumped into an elevated tank, from where gravity feeds it to the plants in the greenhouse. Water harvesting for this South Manchester farmer is quite different.
It's like how I construct a little bobby here now. That catchment water go down in the tank. When the dry time, we have a lot of problem with the water system. So we have to construct the tank that you have the water we can serve you. That when the drought time come, you have the water. When the rainy season come, you full back up, you catch water.
Tyrone, who farms in a hilly area, collects the rainfall from the roof of his house into a tank built of stone and concrete. He then pipes the water into his field, where he irrigates using the drip system.
With a tank, you have limited water. So the drip system doesn't use the water all that hard. It doesn't distribute the water to the plant at a heavy rate. So using the drip in our area is one of the best methods because it uses less water, but it's very effective. Based on the amount of water inside the tank, I can use gravity feed. But whenever it goes down lower, I use a pump system. But I have various means that I use. I can use the air tank, that you also use gravity from that as well. So I use both systems depending on the depth or the height of the water.
Agricultural experts will tell you the size of the water harvester you choose to put in will depend on your preference and budget. In the end, you'd surely be saving on the cost of water and meet the important objective of improved production by reducing the impact of drought.
There are times that you don't definitely have to use water because your nursery will be ready during the rain time, so you plant during that time. So you always try to have your things set up that time that you can have your nursery ready for the rainfall and all of that.
The dry mulching technique has been proved effective in managing drought risks. It's a kind of farming that helps retain soil water in the ground.
What you do, like after mulling out your crop and all of that, like for instance this sweet pepper now, after mulling it, you'll cut the grass. During the whole planting phase, you'll cut the grass and allow it to dry. After mulling, you'll go through and you'll pat down the land. That helps to hold the moisture inside of the land. And for me, I can say it works.
Farmers who plant crops with higher levels of tolerance to heat are better able to deal with heat-related constraints during drought. Research and breeding of drought-tolerant crops has therefore been an area of focus in the Ministry of Agriculture. Farmers being provided with drought-tolerant crops are able to build a resilient system that gives enhanced crop yields under high temperatures. This is where we have to leave you for now. Remember, disasters do happen. Be prepared. Until next time, take care.
Smoking, it's bad for your health. There's nothing cool about this habit. Tobacco smoking is a silent killer that will snare you in a horrific cycle of addiction that robs you of your money and your health. And it's not just you who suffers. Those around you who inhale the smoke are also at risk, your friends and loved ones. So stop if you've started, or resist before you begin the habit. Stay healthy.
Workers are generally more productive when they are safe and healthy. In recognition of this, government has been working hard to ensure the protection of workers and promote wellness at the workplace. Let's take a closer look at this national priority.
Achieving the goal of job creation and economic growth has several dimensions. One of them is enforcing occupational safety and health regulations, basic standards which make provisions to eliminate hazards in the workplace, allowing workers to carry out their duties in a safe environment, and limiting psychological stress which can limit their productivity. In an effort to meet its obligations under the International Labour Organization, the ILO's Decent Work Agenda, the Labour Ministry is working to implement a comprehensive policy for occupational safety and health (OSH) by the end of March. With assistance from the United States Agency for International Development (USAID), an OSH policy profile for Jamaica was developed and launched in December.
Its objective is to measure the state of our occupational safety and health awareness and response, in order to develop and implement a quality program for Jamaica.
It outlines all the tools and resources available in a country to implement and manage occupational safety and health.
Previous rules regarding health and safety at the workplace were contained in 3 pieces of legislation: the Factories Regulations of 1961, the Building Operations and Works of Engineering Construction Regulations of 1968, and the Ship and Docks Regulations, also instituted in 1968. Together, these provided guidelines for the operation of factories, the construction industry, and activities at the country's ports of entry. They included regulations governing safety gear, the proper operation of machinery, the use of chemicals, ventilation and air quality in buildings, inspection and proper procedures for reporting accidents, and other concerns. The new OSH Act to be implemented is intended to build on these rules and introduce some new provisions.
The new Act will cover everybody, including self-employed persons, the agricultural workers, workers in offices, the public sector workers, workers in the financial industry. We look at the minimum wage as well as the national workplace policy on HIV/AIDS.
This policy seeks to uphold and reinforce the fundamental right of workers to be treated with respect and dignity, and speaks to the prevention of stigma and discrimination in the workplace.
The workplace policy on HIV/AIDS, which was also launched in December, received full approval by both Houses of Parliament in February 2013. With the Occupational Safety and Health Act coming soon, it means companies need to get on board now in an effort to strengthen their occupational safety and health procedures. Thankfully, the OSH division of the Ministry of Labour and Social Security provides assistance through its voluntary compliance program, which already had 276 participants at the end of November 2013. Companies signing on will receive training, guidance, and support material to help in the effort. As it regards the HIV/AIDS workplace policy,
A pilot was implemented with 15 companies from the food industry, focused on HIV and food preparation. The focus was on investigating facts to prove that HIV cannot be transmitted through food, and therefore exclusion of a positive person from the workplace is not necessary.
9 of the 15 companies have already drafted proclamations to advance their non-discrimination policy. The ministry has also engaged a consultant to develop a protocol for managing workers affected by HIV and AIDS in the overseas work programs. Through the implementation of the new Occupational Safety and Health Act, the aim is to protect the interest of workers by minimizing injuries and illnesses and eliminating cases of discrimination that can occur in the workplace. By doing this, an enabling workplace climate will be created, and that will influence productivity and economic growth. Public consultation on the OSH Act is to begin in February, but if you want to learn more, contact the Occupational Safety and Health Department at the Ministry of Labour and Social Security, 1F North Street, Kingston. Telephone 922-9500-14 or 967-2090-2.
On the board this week, the Jamaica Cultural Development Commission, JCDC, is inviting members of the public to submit entries for its Festival of Foods competition. The Festival of Foods competition is open to individuals, schools, churches, universities, and community groups. Entries are being accepted in the categories including main dishes, pastries, beverages, and desserts, among others. Deadline for entries for the Festival of Foods competition is Friday, March 28. Get your entry forms and guidelines now online at jcdc.gov.jm, at the JCDC main office, 3-5 Phoenix Avenue, Kingston 10, and at all JCDC parish offices island-wide. Come to the University of Technology Jamaica, UTech, on Thursday, March 20 and bask in its annual literary festival and cultural showcase. The event will run from 10 a.m. to 8:30 p.m. at the Papim campus under the theme Celebrating Jamaica's Evolving Dance Industry, Step by Step. The one-day festival will take place in 4 segments: an art exhibition, a literary workshop, a literary festival, and a cultural showcase. Contact the Center for the Arts at 926-1626 or culture@utech.edu.jm, a Ministry of Youth and Culture endorsed event. Come run for health and walk for life at the Chapelton Police Youth Club 5K Run Walk on Sunday, April 20. Make it a date for this event. Proceeds in aid of an education fund for children of the community and its environs. Send us your events for broadcast on the JIS Community Notice Board. Call 922-868-022 or send an email to cbishop@jis.gov.jm.
How well do you know your child? What he or she likes or dislikes? Favorite food or color? How about who their friends are? Make the time. Get to know your child. It helps to build their relationship. Makes it easy to keep them safe, and it helps their development process.
In our news this week, update on the Portland Bight Goat Islands Development Project and economic opportunities on the horizon. Those and some other major stories right now.
Hi there, I'm Simone Wolf with your JIS News of the Week. It was revealed in Parliament this week that government has reduced the 2013-2014 budget by about $20.2 billion. Finance and Planning Minister Dr. Peter Phillips tabled the first supplementary estimates reflecting a budget that was revised from $520.9 billion to $500.7 billion. Recurrent expenditure, or money set aside to deal with housekeeping expenses like wages and salaries, now stands at $358.2 billion. Capital expenditure, which was cut by about $8 billion, now stands at $142.4 billion. It was also revealed in Parliament this week that an initial framework agreement has been reached between China Harbour Engineering Company (CHEC) and the Port Authority of Jamaica for the proposed Portland Bight Goat Islands Development Project. The basic scope of CHEC's project proposal is a greenfield development to be implemented in phases.
The first phase of the project will include the development of an industrial park, which will carry on the operations associated with storage, assembling, and packaging of goods in light industries, heavy industrial manufacturing, information technology, and skills training.
It calls for dredging and land reclamation activities, as well as the development of critical infrastructure, construction of a container terminal and berths, and a portside logistics zone. A coal-fired electricity generation plant is also to be constructed. Dr. Davies said a number of issues would have to be dealt with prior to the signing of any binding and definitive framework agreement, including an environmental impact assessment (EIA).
I must emphasize that it's only after the completion of the EIA will the project be ready to be submitted to Cabinet for a decision.
Meanwhile, the Transport and Works Minister says the planned privatization of the Kingston Container Terminal (KCT) through a long-term concession agreement with a preferred bidder is on target. Dr. Davies says bidders have been provided with the draft concession agreement and they will be conducting site visits over the next month. Bids are to be returned on May 22, 2014, and the evaluation should be completed by June 20.
After which a provisional bidder will be selected by the commencement of negotiations of the concession agreement.
Negotiations are expected to be completed by September of this year.
3 Commissioners General have been appointed to lead a commission of inquiry into the May 2010 events in West Kingston. Retired Chief Justice and former Attorney General of Barbados, Queen's Counsel Sir David Simmons, will chair the commission. The other 2 commissioners are retired Judge of the Court of Appeal of Jamaica, Justice Hazel Harris, and Queen's Counsel Velma Hilton, a former puisne judge in St. Kitts and Nevis. The Commission of Inquiry, which is expected to be completed within 3 months, will determine the circumstances that led to a state of emergency in May 2010. It will also find out what led to the execution of a provisional warrant for the extradition of Christopher Dudus Coke, assess the conduct of the security forces in Tivoli Gardens, determine who damaged private property, determine whether Coke was in contact with any government officials, and the circumstances under which Coke managed to elude arrest. In line with government's drive to increase visitor arrivals from the Orient, Cabinet has lifted the visa restrictions for Chinese nationals. Information Minister Senator Sandra Faulkner says tapping into the Chinese market has been difficult because citizens have to travel great distances to obtain a visa from the Jamaican embassy in Beijing. The new regime will allow Chinese nationals to visit Jamaica as tourists for up to 30 days without a visa.
China is now the largest spender in international tourism globally. Our government has been making a concerted effort to develop new markets for our tourism industry by relaxing its visa requirements for nationals.
Government has made good on its promise to construct separate holding areas at police stations for juveniles who come in conflict with the law. During a recent tour of the Bridgeport facility, it was revealed that 3 of the first 4 juvenile detention centers being built will be ready by the end of March.
We are making steady progress so that we will be in a position to deliver these facilities to the ministry and ultimately to the JCF who will be using them.
And finally, Prime Minister Portia Simpson Miller joined the family of 18-year-old St. Jago High School athlete Kavon Mackenzie Thursday as his body returned home. Mackenzie collapsed and later died after competing at the North American, Central American and Caribbean Athletic Association's cross-country championships in Tobago on Saturday.
It's really very sad for us, and I can understand the grief of the parents at this time, on behalf of the government and people of Jamaica, that he represented so well. We want to extend to his mom and dad and members of the family our condolences.
While the Trinidad and Tobago government carries out its tests, Mrs. Simpson Miller said Jamaica would be looking at its own scientific tests to determine a cause of death. And those were some of the stories making news this week. I'm Simone Wolf.
It's time that we should have some fun. We've got to live some life. Sing along. Before we go. We've got to live some life. Before we go. Time is short, so here we remain. Let's live the life the best we can. Try to work your soul away. Remember, there's another day. We got to live some life.
This is where we close Jamaica Magazine for today. Be sure to join us when we return with more useful information. Tell us what you thought of the show. Send an email to jamaicamagazine@jis.gov.jm or hit us up on Twitter @JISNews. And our website, jis.gov.jm, remains a constant portal for the very latest government information. On behalf of the entire team here at the JIS, I'm Adrian Atkinson, reminding you to eat well, exercise regularly, and get some rest, and make every day a productive one.
This has been a production of the Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica.